Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're on the acid rock era part 2, and here we get started with the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead was also a San Francisco Bay Area band, and during the rise of the psychedelic counterculture of the 60s. The founding members, Jerry Garcia, vocal and guitar, Bob Weir, Pigpen, Phil Lesh, and Bill Kreutzmann. Mickey Hart later joined in 1967. Grateful Dead's debut album, March 17th, 1967, is here. I've got the full album in itself. I'm just going to play a touch of the first song, of course, but obviously in this sense, I've got it here for you. I'm hoping that you'll go through it. One of the things that I hope that you'll note as we point out the Grateful Dead is they're really utilizing a lot of the old blues techniques. And you're going to hear this as we roll through this. Think of those blues artists that we studied when we first met. It's truly amazing when it comes down to the Grateful Dead. They were reworking a lot of these same licks. Check it out. And then in the last video, of course, you saw Dancing in the Street, and this was also live in San Francisco. And of course, if you'd like to check that out, feel free to. Truckin' is one of their most successful radio format singles, and the single reached number 64 on January 27th, 1971 on the US Pop Singles Chart. Stayed in the chart for 8 weeks. And so this is their, the closest thing to their hit is Truckin'. And hopefully they don't take it down. Every once in a while I'll post this and it'll get taken down. If it does, of course, feel free to come back to the site and play it. I've got the link here for you.
Trucking, got my chips cashed in. Keep trucking, like the Doodah Man. Together, more or less in line. Just keep trucking on. Arizona flashing marquees up on Main Street. Chicago, New York, Detroit, and it's all on the same street. Your typical city involved in a typical daydream. Hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. Dallas got a soft machine. Houston, too close to New Orleans. New York got the ways and means, but just won't let you be.
A lot of R&B elements, a lot of rockabilly elements. Truckin' was the highest charting pop single the group would have until the surprise top 10 performance of Touch of Grey. Same thing, if they take this down, you've got this here to play, of course, on the site. Maybe potentially on the lecture here that I upload, they may have this down. So if that's the case, I do apologize. Just go back to the site itself on Canvas. Here's Touch of Grey. The Greatest Artists of All Time by Rolling Stone. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994, and they've sold more than 35 million albums worldwide. They toured constantly throughout their career, and that's basically what they're known for, more than 2,300 concerts. The 1998 edition of the Guinness Book of World Records recognized them with a listing under the heading Most Rock Concerts Performed. Their largest concert audience came in 1973 when they played along with the Allman Brothers before 600,000 people at the Summer Jam. Next up, we have Jefferson Airplane. They were also formed in San Francisco in 1965. The group was the first band from the San Francisco scene to achieve international mainstream success. They performed at the three most famous American rock festivals of the 60s, the Monterey, of course, Woodstock, and Altamont, and as well as headlined the first Isle of Wight festival in 1968. Their 1967 record, Surrealistic Pillow, is regarded as one of the key recordings of the Summer of Love. So two hits from that album, Somebody to Love and White Rabbit, are listed in Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. So I've got Somebody to Love here with Jefferson Airplane and also with Dick Clark doing the promotion. Check it out here.
And again, the Jefferson Airplane.
And then we've also got Somebody to Love and White Rabbit here. So I'll play the end of it here in a second.
Combination of psychedelic sound and color, and well, if you want to experience it to the fullest, we suggest that you, I don't want to offend any of you, but we suggest that you eat a banana while you're watching. Or smoke a banana, as my brother said, but actually he's pretty far out, even for me. Now here they are, Jefferson Airplane and their latest hit, White Rabbit.
One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small, and the ones that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And if you go chasing rabbits, and you know you're going to fall, tell 'em I've got smoking caterpillar has given you a call. Call Alice when she was just small. When the men on the chessboard get up and tell you where to go, and you just had some kind of mushroom, and your mind is moving
And I also have Somebody to Love here, live from Woodstock. And hopefully they don't take this down as well.
All right, friends, you have seen the heavy groups. Now you will see morning maniac music. Believe me, yeah. It's the new dawn. Yeah, the regular guys. Morning, people!
Isn't that beautiful? Between 1967 and 1972, they scored a run of 8 consecutive top 20 albums in the United States, with Surrealistic Pillow and Crown of Creation making the top 10. Successor bands to Jefferson Airplane include Jefferson Starship and also Starship. Jefferson Starship's ballad Miracles helped in 1975 reach multiple platinum status and number 1 in the Billboard charts. And this is Miracles here.
If only you believe like I believe, baby, like I believe, we get by. If only you believe in miracles, so would I. If only you believe like I believe, like I believe, we get by. If only you believe, if only you believe in miracles, so would I. I might have to move heaven and earth, baby. So we're making love, how there's really nothing we can do. You know we could, if we wanted to. You know we could, we could exist on the stars if it's so easy. Oh, we gotta get a little faith in you. Oh, I've been so many places, I've seen some places. Yes, I have. I know that love is here. Yes, it is. Keeps holding this world together. Ain't nothing better. Ain't nothing better. And all the answers to our prayers. Yeah, it's the same everywhere.
And then also with Starship, and this is one of their big hits, We Built the City.
We built this city. We built this city Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways eating up the night. My pony plays the mama. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
And in the 80s, that was one of the biggest hits. Jefferson Airplane was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1996. And so continuing on, let's talk about Bill Graham. Bill Graham had a huge influence around the world, sponsoring the musical exploration of the 60s from San Francisco. As you probably had note or seen some of these posters, these are very famous Bill Graham posters, and as you can see, they're promoting some of the old blues bands that we've covered in this particular case. And some of these blues bands, like Muddy Waters, for example, Muddy Waters, a blues artist, would go to San Francisco, have huge artists. And, Muddy would be playing with, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, all the bands that we're talking about as of right now. Bill Graham made famous the Fillmore and Winterland Arena. These turned out to be proving grounds for rock bands and acts of the San Francisco Bay Area, including, of course, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin. And again, this is Grateful Dead here live at the Fillmore. This is just a couple minutes here. I'll just kind of play, the beginnings of it. But, again, you're essentially hearing blues when the Grateful Dead are, playing what they're playing. It's really interesting. So this is Grateful Dead live at the Fillmore. Doesn't that sound like some of the old blues artists we've covered? So that's Grateful Dead, February 12th, 1967. Bill Graham's considered the star, or at least one of the stars of the 60s in San Francisco, because he had professional equipment for the amazing talent to use for their live performances. Before that, the talent they were bringing in, certain things that, potentially worked in their minds, but it wasn't necessarily professional equipment. Bill Graham made that possible for them, or at least for some of them. It was of the first professional equipment they've ever used. He brought in mics, speakers, amplifiers, with that making the sound quality very, very professional. And, to this day, some of the best recordings that, we can find, like, for example, this Grateful Dead recording. And continuing on, we've got the Doors here, also part of this acid culture, but at the same token, the Doors were formed in Los Angeles, a little different, with vocalist Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, Robbie Krieger, and John Densmore. The band took its name from Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception, which was a reference to Blake's quote, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite." There were among the most controversial and influential and, of course, unique rock acts of the 60s. The Doors' Summer Almost Gone live in San Francisco to me is truly amazing, and this is just at the beginnings. Now, the actual recording in itself, I don't believe this is live, but at least you could kind of see some of the antics that they were doing when they first started, live. One thing I like to point out is that the keyboard player, Ray Manzarek, he's actually playing the piano parts, the keyboard parts, electric piano parts, and then he's also playing the bass line with his left hand. Check it out.
Summer's almost gone. Summer's almost gone. Almost gone. Summer's almost gone. Where will we be when the summer's gone? Morning found us calmly unaware. Noon burned gold into our hair. At night we...
Awesome. The Doors released 8 albums between 1967 and 1971. All but one hit the top 10 of the Billboard 200 and went platinum or better. The 1967 release of The Doors was the first in a series of top 10 albums in the United States, followed by Strange Days, Waiting for the Sun, The Soft Parade, Morrison Hotel, Absolutely Live, and LA Woman. The Doors hold 20 gold, 14 platinum, and 5 multi-platinum album awards in the United States alone. The band had 3 million selling singles in the United States: Light My Fire, Hello I Love You, Touch Me. I've got Light My Fire here. The same thing, if they make us take it down, of course, I'll just lose the media in the middle. You'll always be able to go back to Canvas if we've got it here, but of course I'll play it here. Hopefully they won't do that. Check it out. Light My Fire at the Hollywood Bowl here, in this particular case, 1968.
Wake up! You can't remember where I was. Had this dream stopped? The snake was pale gold, glazed and shrunken. We were afraid to touch it. The sheets were hot, dead prison. And she was beside me. Oh, she's no young. Her dark red hair, the white soft skin. No. Run to the mirror in the bathroom, look! He's coming in here! I can't live through each slow century of her moving. I let my cheeks slide down the cool, smooth tile. Feel the good, cold, stinging blood. The slow, yes, night. Know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. Time to hesitate is through. The time to wallow.
And I must say, you should watch the rest of that. It is truly amazing. The Doors, Hello, I Love You, also from the Hollywood Bowl, but I'll play just a touch of this here real quick.
Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She's walking down the street, lying to every eye she meets. Do you think you'll be the guy to make the queen of the angels sigh? Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She holds her head so high, like a...
It's really awesome how Ray's holding down the bass line and also the keyboard parts. It's really cool. The Doors live at American Bandstand, 1967 coverage here.
Interesting, you think, yeah. Okay. I'm curious. You mentioned the magic word right as we went into the Bee Gees film. You said something about the Doors. What is the favorite song that you have?
Crystal Ship.
Just so happens that that's what they're going to do, so that makes a nice introduction. It does. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please greet the Doors?
Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss, another kiss, another kiss. The days are bright and filled with pain. Enclose me in your gentle rain. The time you ran was too insane. We'll meet again. We'll meet again.
Now, I'll leave you with this. This is an interview with Jim Morrison's father and also his sister. I think you'll love it.
Well, Jim was a very intelligent, bright young man, and behaved himself pretty well, really. And he liked to write and draw pictures.
He was an avid reader. He read everything, and then he also wrote. He would write he had a book, and this was in high school, he would learn a new word, and then he'd write a whole story around it. So his vocabulary was incredible.
He liked all the classics and read everything he could get his hands on. And he was always delighted to go to his grandmother's house because she had a library.
One time he just got up out of class and told his teacher he was going to have a brain tumor removed. And he just walked out of class to go read. When he graduated from high school, he asked my parents for the complete works of Nietzsche. Most kids want a car. I think my brothers and I were pretty close because we moved a lot. So whenever we moved, we were just the ones we knew.
The life that I lived as a naval officer required that you to have a period ashore and a period at sea, which meant that probably half the time I was gone. I tried to make him feel like he was the head of the household, and he tried to take care of his mother while I was gone. He went on all the ships that I served in. It was clear that while he had some admiration for the Navy and the fact that I was in it, but he didn't have any interest in it himself to be a sailor or to be an officer.
He was 3 years older, but 4 years in grades. So by the time I was in high school, he was in college.
I thought he would have a success because he was smart and creative and could write well. We were delighted he went to college. He started it out in Florida. I wanted to get him to go to graduate school. We had read, of course, about the film school at UCLA, and I was looking forward to his graduating and going into Hollywood.
So I just thought he would be a beatnik and be poor all his life. I even spent one whole night crying about it, worrying that no one was going to ever realize his talent, because I knew he wouldn't compromise and become a plumber, or I knew he wasn't going to just do anything.
When he ended up in rock music, I was absolutely flabbergasted. Well, he called me on the phone, said he was going on the road with a rock band. And it took me a little bit to gathering what he was really saying, but then, sure enough, that's what it was. And I told him that's ridiculous, that you're not a singer, you can't sing. And I told him he was really, I said, you are on the wrong track here. Get yourself a job. That to me was not a job.
I don't know when I was aware that he was in a band. I think it all happened rather quickly. My mom sent me the first album with no note, just the album in a package. When I opened it, I was just astounded that was my brother on the cover.
Okay, they've got a little rock band there, and they're making some headway, that's fine. But when he turned up on the national TV, why, I was amazed. I didn't have any idea of the talent he had as an entertainer. I still feel that his talent was not vocal, as in the classic term, but that he was an entertainer.
He did say a couple of times that he thought that the audience deserved a spectacle. They had paid all that money, and they came to such a huge arena by the time he was famous that he needed to be a showman.
We never had an occasion to see them. They were never in the same area.
My dad never stopped to listen. They really never stopped to listen to the music. They more just read about it and heard about it. And they didn't really know very much about what he was actually doing.
I haven't even heard the lyrics. I've heard the titles like Light My Fire. That's about it. And what it goes on after that, I couldn't tell you. I'm afraid I'm a very poor interpreter of his talent.
My dad was in the Navy. He was still an admiral, and he had his own life. And I think Jim knew that this would be an issue with my parents. And I think he just separated himself completely.
Well, I didn't know Jim very well after he left home. We didn't see him much. So I didn't have a chance to really appraise his mental attitude in his last years.
He did tell me one time he didn't want to sing Light My Fire again. He didn't want to do what the audiences wanted to hear from him. And when he wanted to do his poetry, they didn't want to listen. So I don't know if he thought fame was getting him what he wanted. I think Jim went to Paris to escape what he had in the United States, to gain his own freedom, allowing him to do his own writing and experience something new. A friend called and said to my husband, it's on the radio that Ann's brother died. You better find out. And it was days later that we heard it. Jim was already buried when we heard it.
We were notified by the naval attaché at the embassy in Paris. Sent me a message and said that Jim had died of a heart attack in a Paris hospital.
it was losing him was awful. It was just awful, and it took me a long, long time and to get over it, and it was hard, partly because of all the speculation that maybe he wasn't dead. Deep in your heart, you thought, oh, well, he would have done something like that. It's possible. Maybe he did just want to get away and have a new life, and he'll turn up later. So even though I pretty much believed he was dead, it left a little opening.
Yeah, I was impressed with the fact that here is my son being interred really quite honorably into the great cemetery in Paris. And as you realize how well known and how well liked he was.
My dad thought for a long time, he took it very seriously what he was going to put on the grave.
I went back to my Greek teacher and I said, what we're looking for is something for the gravestone which sums up his philosophy.
So he put in Greek, true to his own destiny or true to his own spirit. And I thought that was just the perfect thing to put on his tombstone.
And he went his own way, and he was true to his own ambition, to his own aspirations. And that was his goal in life, and he made it.
I would like him to be remembered for his poetry and his music and his living his life his way.
Well, basically, he was a good man. He's a good, solid citizen. He had moral and ethical standards that were very high, and I think he was just somebody you would like to know.
So with that said, that's the end of the Acid Rock Era Part 2. Let us know if you have any questions. Of course, hopefully in that sense, you will go back. I do have the full album here, Grateful Dead debut album, March 17, 1967. Listen to that whole thing. I think you're going to love it. Anyway, you guys take care. Have a good rest of your week.